Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're really diving into the whole creative process. We're going to journey from that intense, kind of personal struggle of just getting a project off the ground, all the way to understanding how that very struggle actually fuels a trillion-dollar global economy. So yeah, let's get right into it.
So let's start with a feeling that, every single creator knows deep down. That unsettling uncertainty right in the middle of a project. Pete Docter, the genius director at Pixar behind movies like Inside Out, he calls it the scary point where it's just dark. You know the one? It's that moment when you've started, but the end is absolutely nowhere in sight. It's just you, the work, and, well, the darkness.
So, okay, if you're stuck in that dark tunnel, how in the world do you find your way through? How do you keep yourself from just giving up and turning back? Well, it turns out the pros, they have some pretty powerful navigation tools they use. They use something called mental models. Now, what are those? They're basically powerful psychological frameworks. Think of them as simple, familiar pictures you hold in your mind to make sense of a process that feels completely uncertain. It's not about having a perfect map, not at all. It's more about using a story to keep your faith in the journey alive.
And it's absolutely fascinating to see how different creators visualize their own work. I mean, for George Lucas, it was a caravan heading into the unknown, which totally reframes uncertainty as an adventure. For WALL-E director Andrew Stanton, it's like being a ship's captain setting a course without a complete map, which, justifies making bold decisions. And then, for Up writer Bob Peterson, it's an archaeological dig, just patiently brushing away dust to reveal the story, which really values discovery over invention.
I have to say, I'm really drawn to Pete Docter's creativity train. The idea is just so powerful. Once you get going, you start building this creative momentum. The faster you move, just churning out ideas without stopping to judge them, the more unstoppable you become. Really, the biggest obstacles, all that negativity and self-doubt, they're just brakes on this train. The key? Just keep moving. Okay, so let's move on. Let's see how this whole thing builds from just a personal coping mechanism into a full-blown professional mindset, one that really separates the seasoned pro from the amateur.
First off, it's really helpful to understand a classic distinction here. You've got art, which is often about exploration. It's intuitive, it's guided by a personal vision. Design, though, on the other hand, is all about problem solving, a structured process created to meet a specific user's need. Now, both are creative, for sure, but their starting points and their goals, they're fundamentally different.
And this leads us to a really crucial distinction in mindset. A creative professional is often defined by things outside of them, like contracts and clients. But a professional creative is defined by something internal, a deep commitment to treating creativity as a disciplined, systematic craft.
So here's the bottom line, the crucial point. A professional creative does not wait around for the muse to strike. Nope, they treat creativity as their job. They show up on schedule, they do the work, and they systematize their process to get results even on days when they really don't feel like it. Inspiration becomes a result of the work, not something you need before you can start.
All right, so now that we have our tools and we have our professional mindset locked in, let's zoom all the way out. Where does all this individual creative work actually fit into the bigger, global picture?
Welcome to the creative economy. At its absolute core, it's the global system for turning individual talent into intellectual property. This is the engine, the powerhouse that transforms ideas into jobs, wealth, and economic growth on a truly massive scale.
And this is just a brilliant way to picture it as a living ecosystem. The roots are all the inputs that feed it, things like education, the arts, and intellectual property rights. And the branches? Those are the outputs, new jobs, new ways of thinking, and an entirely new business models.
And the scale of this whole thing is, well, it's staggering. According to the United Nations, the global export value of creative goods and services has already blown past $1 trillion. This isn't some niche sector. It's a dominant force in the global economy.
So, this massive economy can basically be broken down into three broad categories of value. You've got the arts, which are all about cultural expression, the designs, focused on functional problem solving, and the creatives, who are the folks that specialize in commercializing all that intellectual property.
Now, an incredibly useful tool for visualizing this comes from the cultural economist David Throsby. His concentric circles model, it's like a strategy map, showing how creative value flows through this entire ecosystem.
So the model shows how new ideas often start right there in the center, in the core creative arts, where that cultural value is at its absolute highest. And then, as those ideas radiate outward into industries like publishing, film, and advertising, their commercial value just grows and grows. This map is a really powerful tool for figuring out where you fit in that creative value chain.
So here's the big question, right? How do you use this map? How can you actually build a personal blueprint to navigate this complex and, let's be honest, exciting ecosystem?
All right, so here is a 5-step blueprint to put it all together. 1. Figure out your core focus. Are you in arts, designs, or creatives? 2. Map your position using those concentric circles. 3. Master your place in the value chain by collaborating with others. 4. You got to embrace business skills to sustain your craft. And 5, look for those spillovers, opportunities to apply your creative skills in completely new sectors.
And why is this so important? Seriously, why does this all matter? Because creativity isn't just about art or commerce. The world's most urgent problems, I'm talking climate change, social division, they won't be solved by technical fixes alone. They demand profoundly creative approaches to how we live, how we communicate, and how we organize ourselves.
So, let's wrap this up. Here's the big picture. That personal, uncertain journey through the dark tunnel, it isn't just a solitary struggle. When you navigate it with mental models and a professional mindset, you are plugging your work directly into a trillion-dollar global economy. An economy whose collective creativity is honestly one of our best hopes for solving the challenges of the future.
And that really just leaves us with a final thought to ponder. The path of creation is never clear, but its potential impact is limitless. The only question left is, where will you direct your creative energy?